Hello, my name's Rob Edwards, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we're taking a somewhat delayed look at my second book in the Justice Academy series, The Crossover Paradox. This came out at the start of last month, and I've been meaning to take a little bit of time to read you a chapter of the book on the channel for a while now. If those of you who were around for the time when the first book, The Ascension Machine, was released, I tried to be everywhere on the internet at the time and probably was slightly annoying. This time, the release of my book sadly coincided with me starting a new training course, and that has been sapping all of my mental energy and most of my free time. But I have a free half hour right now, so I'm going to do a very quick reading of Chapter 1 of The Crossover Paradox. And I would love to do it from the book here in my hand. That would be the nicest way to do it. But I don't want to spend the entire time just showing you the top of my head. So instead, I'm going to open it up in Kindle on my PC, and I'm going to read it from there. And hopefully, I will even remember to look up at the camera from time to time. So here we go. Chapter 1. Sudden Arrival. My name is Gray, and I'm a student superhero. Technically, Gray isn't the name on my ID, but since that name is also fake, I'm not sure why I should be limited by it. Gray is who I chose to be, and so far he's been the most successful me I've ever been. The first year I was Gray, I made a lot of friends, enrolled in college, although that was under yet another name, and stopped an alien invasion. Identity, it is a complex issue. At the end of that first year, during the summer break, most of my new friends went back to families and home worlds. Me, I don't really have either of those. My family and I, parted company when I was 8. As for a home, I've spent the better part of a decade drifting from space station to space station, seeing the galaxy from a variety of orbital boxes. I survived, prospered on one level, although I did get into a whole lot of trouble. The most important thing to me during that summer break was not to fall back on old habits. There he is, get him! Well, so much for that hiding place. The gantry swayed as the two Colburn climbed the ladder near my feet, and I power crawled away as best I could. Far below us, the Colburn's boss shouted encouragement. To them, not me. This was getting me nowhere, really nowhere. I was rapidly running out of gantry, and there was no ladder at the far end, just a long drop to the sloping roof of the Kirby-class Star Cruiser docked below. Another gantry swung from the ceiling across from me, but it was a good 20 metres away. Earlier in the holiday, I'd just have snapped up my grapnel gun and swung across, but the propellant canister was long since out of gas, so now I had no way to bridge the gap. A quick glance back, and the golden shoulder fur of the first of the Colburn just crested the top of the ladder. Can't go up, across, or back. That only leaves one direction. I pulled the grapnel from my belt, hooked the claw onto the gantry. No propellant, but I still had plenty of cable, and the inertial reel on my belt should, in theory, slow my descent. We hadn't covered it in grapnel gun basics at the academy. Maybe it was an advanced topic, but I couldn't see a reason for it not to work. No choice anyway. The second Colburn topped the ladder. The gantry shifted, tipping slightly as the first Colburn passed the midpoint. "Mr. Bowrider wants a word with you," he growled. "Popularity is a curse," I said, and threw myself off the gantry. I fell, faster than I hoped, but slower than I might, the cable paying out smoothly. When I hit the roof of the cruiser, it was with enough force to blast the air from my lungs, but not enough to break bones. By reflex, I clicked the gun control to release the claw and retract the cable. Immediately, I started to slide. There was just enough curve to the canopy of the cruiser to restart my acceleration groundwards. I let the grapnel gun go. It clattered behind me, the cable still retracting. Picking up speed and spinning as I slid, I scrambled for handholds. I caught at one edge, a safety grip designed for extravehicular work. Too fast. My fingers slid across the hard edge. I couldn't secure my grip. All I did was add a little extra spin to my fall. The world whipped by in a whirl as I slipped and clattered along. I bounced off something, suddenly airborne. When I landed, it was on the smooth plexiglass of the main bridge window. I caught a glimpse of a startled Zalex crewman working on the bridge, but I spun by too fast to catch his response. The front of the Kirby class dropped away sharply at the end of the bridge section. I had to slow my descent before I hit that. I abandoned the idea of handholds, instead fought for drag, stretched myself as wide and as flat as I could, put as much surface area against the ship as I could manage. My slide slowed as the incline grew shallower. I was running out of spaceship, though. If I couldn't find a way to stop before I went over... Now I needed a handhold, something, anything to grab onto, but the sleek nose section of the cruiser was not obliging. I slowed, and then the world dropped away as I reached and plummeted over the edge. I fell 5 meters and came up sharp as my belt cut into my waist. That was going to leave a bruise, but my grapnel gun, still rattling along behind me, had caught on something above, left me dangling 10 meters above the docking bay floor. I hit the control on the reel to pay out the cable, let it drop me to the deck. I lay panting, bruised and battered on the cold deck of the docking bay. The Kirby loomed above me, its name painted across its hull in metre-high lettering. The Sudden Arrival. I liked it. Booted feet pounded the deck. That and shouting told me the chase wasn't over yet. I cut the cable, no time to unsnag it, and clambered to my feet. Where to now? Perhaps I could lose myself among the cargo pallets stacked against the near wall. I set off at a hobble as the Colburn boss and 2 more of his minions gave chase. I grabbed the edge of the first pallet I reached, used it to swing around the corner. There, looming out of nowhere, was a wall of green muscle. A Brontum warrior, 4 arms, braced, a grim set to his jaw. I tried to stop, leaning back enough that I fell. My momentum carried me up to his shins just as the Colburn chasing me also rounded the corner. The Brontum swung, connected, and the gang leader fell to the floor unconscious. Standing behind the Brontum, 5 station security officers braced their stun bolters ready to cover him. The Colburn's minions staggered to a halt, hands raised in surrender. I looked all the way up to the Brontum, grinning above me. 734, I said. Hey, Gray, he rumbled. Station security took over the problem for me. They cuffed the 3 at ground level and coaxed the 2 Colburn off the gantry above. I let them worry about it. My work here was done. For once, it hadn't needed to be a huge ongoing caper. It made a nice change of pace. So, who were those guys? 734 asked. Just some random mobsters. Part of the Bowrider smuggling operation out of Bantus. I recognised one of them, so I spoke to security and offered to help bring them in. Funny, this time last year I was running from station security. Now I'm actively working with them. We'll make an upstanding citizen of you yet, Gray. One thing at a time. I'm still working on superhero. Upstanding citizen sounds like more of a postgraduate course. We watched the last of the Colburn get jostled through the exit on his way to the station brig. I cast a sideways glance at 734. I have to ask. You know I have to ask, right? In the long and glorious history of victories achieved by the proud Brontum warrior race, 734's battle to hide his grin was not one. Ask me what, Gray? I gestured broadly, taking in his outfit. He'd spent our first year in jeans and an X-shirt, but he'd clearly decided it was time to step it up. Most of the outfit was made of some tough but close-fitting material in a shade of deep purple, accented with dark blue on his arms and legs. It was armoured, or at least padded, in strategic locations. The upper shoulder pads and combat boots were chunky and black, good quality, but from a different aesthetic. At the centre of his chest, a golden circle with P of K drawn in. I mean, that. What's that? I asked. It's my costume, Gray. I'd hoped to have one by the end of first year, but things kind of got in the way, you know. Sure, I remember. Even some freshers arrived with costumes and names in place. I couldn't have turned up as a second year with nothing. It would have been embarrassing. He bit his lower lip. You'll be fine, of course. It doesn't really apply to you, but for me, you know. I laughed. I really should come up with something, I guess. I was all in for the academy, what it stood for, and what it could offer me, but there was no getting away from it. The code names and costumes were still a bit silly. You'll come up with something, Gray. I know you will. Oh, you haven't seen the best bit. He pressed a button on his collar, and a hood, no, a mask, folded out and over to cover his head and the top half of his face. There, see? That's so cool. And I've worked the cyanic crown into the mask too. Another toggle engages that when I need it. I don't know if this is the final version, but I needed a starting point. What do you think? First impressions. Be honest. It looks great. You might want to fine-tune the colours to go with your skin tones. I'm not sure if that blue works with your green, but yes, I like it. It's a good start. Kind of classic. 734 beamed. Thanks, man. It is, isn't it? Do I want to ask why you have PK here? I tapped his emblem. That's about my name. I'm thinking of going with Probability Kid. He gestured broadly with his right hands, for emphasis. It works because of my precognition, and with my name being numbers, and P of K being the probability of K. It does work, doesn't it? You know we Brontum aren't great with names. Sure, 734. Although, Kid. Don't you want something cooler? Captain? Doctor? No, not Doctor. Probability Man? I can't call myself Captain. It might be years before I earn my commission. And as for man, Brontum don't technically have genders, although most of us do identify with one. I think having man in my name might confuse people. I nodded. That's a fair point. Okay, well, we can think about it. We have time, but yeah, Probability Kid. I like it. Is that what you want me to call you? On mission, yes please, but when it's just us or around the academy, 734 is still fine. Or, His face fell a little. I could see even with his mask up. Yeah, about that, I have some news. More exciting than your new name and costume? No, 734 said. Unfortunately not. Come on, let's head topside. There are some people I want you to meet, or, well, there are some people you probably should meet, anyway. He pressed the button to stow his mask, and we headed off to the hangar-level lifts. Given the way that the internet works and the way that YouTube is, I can't imagine that anyone's going to sit and watch me read this out loud to them for half an hour. So I think I will stop there. That's not the full chapter 1. But we had a bit of an action scene and a bit of an opportunity to see Gray and 734 interact again. So I think that's quite a nice little snippet of the book. So the Crossover Paradox, it is available now from Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's in paperback. It's in Kindle format. And in Finland, if you happen to be in Finland, it's available to order from Adlibris as well. So it is out there and about there. If you do read it, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you made of the book. But as it is, we have a few reviews on Amazon and on Goodreads already. So if you want to know more about the books, check out the pages there. Anyway, that is it from me today. Thank you very much for joining me. I have something else related to my book planned for pretty soon. I'm hoping maybe even next week, but the way this course is going, I can't promise my head is going to be empty enough for me to actually record the next thing I want to record. But I should be back fairly soon with something new one way or the other. So thank you very much, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.